welcome to this Intelligent Briefing. My name is Alex Presley. I'm the editor of Intelligent Data Centres, and in this edition of our Spotlight series, we speak to Jim Shanahan, Chief Operations Officer at ServerFarm, who tells us about the driving factors behind the company's modernisation project and the reason for utilising the expertise of i3 Solutions Group. I hope you enjoy. Just start by telling us about your role and about the company and how you contribute to ensuring business success.
Sure, thanks, Alex. So my name is Jim Shanahan. I'm the Chief Operating Officer with ServerFarm. We are a global developer, owner, and operator of data centers, wholesale data centers in particular. So in my role, I'm responsible for uptime, basically for keeping the lights on, keeping the business running, and keeping the customers happy across our global fleet of data centers. Separately, I'm also responsible for business in EMEA as we expand. And just a little bit of background. So up until, I guess, a few years ago, we were mainly a US-centered data center company, and we planted a flag in EMEA back in 2018. And we've been steadily expanding since then. And I guess one of my responsibilities is for that expansion, so driving business within EMEA.
We've heard about the modernisation project. So can you tell us a bit about what were the driving factors behind the modernisation of the facility?
Sure. So this particular data center in London was originally an enterprise data center with a single tenant. As is common with a lot of enterprise data centers these days, they tend to find themselves in a kind of where they have a lot of footprint, decreasing efficiency, increasing costs per kWit, and so on. So we entered into a sale and leaseback arrangement with the original owner and tenant of the data center, where we bought the facility from them. We renovated the existing space, we fitted out the unused space, and basically we increased the quality of the operation that was going on there. So in renovating that space and upgrading the data center, we created quite a bit of value, basically by unlocking the stranded value that was there. And in doing so, we shared the benefits amongst all of the stakeholders. So the original owner, new tenants when we turned it into a multi-tenant data center, and then ourselves as the operators benefited as well. So I guess everybody benefited from the modernization of the facility, and that was the key driver behind it, to get the existing tenant out of that kind of quandary that they were stuck in.
Yeah. Okay. And why did you select i3 as the vendor?
Well, we'd known i3 for some time. i3 Solutions Group is pretty well known in the data center industry as a leading mechanical and electrical designer of data centers. So to us, in the past at least, they had been something of a known entity. We had spoken to a few people that had used them in the past. We had tried them on a few smaller projects, and then when this one came along, they were kind of a natural choice for us to give it a go, I suppose, with them. And I'd have to say we're very happy with that choice. I mean, they're now a trusted partner of ours. We would consider them to be, I guess, the best data center design house in EMEA, certainly for the purposes of the type of jobs that we take on. Mm-hmm. So they're very good guys. They're very good to work with. Very nice bunch of guys altogether.
Okay. And why was increased data capacity a requirement, and what long-term benefits would you say this offers?
So in the existing facility with the original tenant, they were, as I mentioned, decreasing in footprint, decreasing in IT load, and I guess it really comes down to the economics. The economics dictate that a wholesale data center these days, if it's less than kind of 2-3 megawatts, it's really tough to make it work. So the increased capacity was really driven by market economics. So by increasing the capacity above 3 megawatts, we've installed far in excess of that there now. It basically brings it more into line with something that's sustainable going forward for a data center. The market requirements, in fact, for most type of data centers these days, it's very rare that you'll find something less than 2-3 megawatts at all. And those that are tend to be kind of tough financially. They tend to hemorrhage money. They efficient. They tend to be places that are under invested. So we basically came with the proposition that we can provide a lot of investment into that data center, bring it up to into the range of 10 to 12 megawatts, and make it a financially viable facility from what it was before.
Mm-hmm. And within the story, you mention environmental factors. How important are environmental factors for your customers, and how is this project guaranteed efficiencies in this area?
So environmental sustainability is very important for all of our customers. I mean, every data center tenant these days, at least, is very concerned about pretty much every aspect of providing a sustainable service. Part of that is the best use of space, and how they can create efficiencies in doing that. So some of the efficiencies that we would have generated from a sustainability perspective is by doing a sale and leaseback rather than a greenfield build, for example. We can provide a much lower carbon footprint to bringing new data center capacity online. So, for example, when you're repurposing an existing shell, you don't have to take a whole lot of new steel and concrete and get that going. You've already got the shell, so you're effectively fitting out the existing data center, using its existing footprint and keeping it intact, and just fitting out the equipment inside it. So that makes a big difference for a start. Secondly, we would have a much improved PUE, so the power usage efficiency of the renovated data center is much higher. It's a much more efficient data center than it was before. There is a much more efficient operation in there because we're over the kind of critical mass in terms of the size of data center that you need to have. We would have keener power pricing than we would have had in the past, and that allows us to do things like more sustainable choice of power sources, to include more renewables, to make it easier for our customers and their end users to make sustainable choices when they're choosing to locate with us.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. And what are some of the main advantages of being situated in a prime location? Because I know that that's also mentioned.
Yeah, so in data centers, I mean, it's really location, 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 as in many other classes of real estate. It is still the big driver. So where our data center is located, it's kind of between Slough and the City of London. So Slough is, as I guess you know, one of the main data center thoroughfares in the UK, in fact, in Europe right now, and has been for quite some time. So we are on the main transit and fiber paths between Slough and the city. And from there, effectively, you can draw a line through our data center from Slough through us to London and on through to the rest of the world. So that's important. Secondly, I guess the historical picture as regards location was more about server huggers and how they wanted to be located close to where their servers were, so that they could go in and see them every day and upload stuff, and there was much less remote work going on. Now it's excuse me. Now it's more about providing services remotely. We provide remote hands from our folks on site, so everything can be done more remotely. But the location story has now changed to being, in close proximity to where you need to be from a data transfer perspective. So, for example, it might be sub-millisecond latency to a major cloud on-ramp. And there are two big things kind of driving that location thing right now. If you're a hub data center, your data center really needs to be at the center of gravity of the eyeballs that you want to serve. And that goes for whether you're a Google, an Amazon, a Facebook, or anybody else. It's really, where is the center of gravity of your users, and where can you locate your large hub data center to serve all of those. The second one then is around being an edge data center. and the location there is picked that best serves a concentrated local area. So in our case, we've kind of got the best of both worlds there. We're hitting both of those needs. We can be a hub. We're big enough to be a hub data center, and we're also providing edge services to a number of our end user tenants also.
Okay. And finally, how far has expanding capacity in response to workload and customer demand future-proofed the company?
Okay, so there's a few aspects there, but this data center is just one of a larger portfolio of data centers that we have throughout EMEA and North America. But it's kind of a microcosm of what we do in general. So in many cases where we do sale and leaseback, we'll come to an enterprise data center owner and we look to unlock the value that they have in their legacy data center assets. So in many cases, you've got, for example, banks and other large institutions that have historically invested a lot in their own on-premise data center facilities. Through the adoption of cloud and the advent of virtualization and a bunch of other technologies, they are now left with these large assets that they're never going to use. So we can help them to unlock the value in those legacy assets by turning them into multi-tenant facilities, by bringing in other users, by making use of that spare space that they have, and really sharing the wealth in that process. So we can also renovate and make shiny and new for those existing customers, those spaces that they wouldn't have been able to justify any investment up to that point. We can create and convert unused space and by using the multi-tenant model, turn that into use for other customers. We can improve the efficiency, not just from PUE, but in terms of operational efficiency. We can improve the reliability of the equipment. So by installing new equipment to replace the old failure-prone equipment, we greatly improve the uptime of the facility. And basically, I guess, everybody benefits from that unlocking of value. And it's something that we've been looking at in recent years, that a lot of data center companies, owners, operators, and some of our peers are all focused on the hyperscale model, where you build to suit, where you are basically chasing what's fast becoming a commoditized market. In other words, it's very hard not to it's very hard to get a hyperscale customer without going out ahead of a deal. And by that, I mean having to invest in a large data center footprint and basically build it and hope that they will come. We have taken a slightly different approach here and in a lot of our builds, where we will take an existing asset and look to convert that into something that's needed by a whole bunch of different customers, not just the hyperscalers. And we have lots of hyperscale customers, but for other enterprise customers that had previously been in a hybrid model, so where they want to have an on-premise part of their workload, where they want to have a cloud piece of their workload, and have them closely co-located. And that really works for us and for our customers. That kind of helps us to future-proof the company then, because our view is, I suppose, with the whole adoption of cloud, there's a question about, what's going to happen to the data center of the future. Our view is that more and more people will try to move towards cloud and find out how difficult it is, not just to get into cloud, but also to get out of cloud as well. And we have a lot of customers that are kind of stuck in cloud and can't get out of there because of the barriers to exit, effectively. So we can help them by providing that on-premises piece, where they have an existing data center. They can keep that existing data center and still do their cloud migration, but we can make their existing on-premise data center now become hyper efficient and effectively cloudify those legacy assets. And that's something that we see as the way forward and the future of how data centers are going to work.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add that you don't feel that we've covered?
Well, I guess one of the things that we focus on is the automation of data center operations. We have an in-house product, we call it InCommand, and it's used primarily as the operating system for everything that we do in the data center. It runs all of our maintenance, it's a CMMS. It runs all of our asset management and tracking. It does all our projects, adds, moves, and changes of servers, IT, compute for our customers. And it makes everything available in real time so that any of our end users in any of our data centers globally can click into the data center where they're located with us, get a view of what's going on in their rack, what the real-time power and cooling is. If they want to order a new server, they can ask us to spin that up online and it's ready within hours. And we effectively provide the same type of service that they can get from Amazon Web Services or anybody else. And it effectively, that platform allows them to what we call cloudify those legacy assets. That's something that's very powerful and that not too many people are doing, but it's becoming more and more apparent as a driver data center. People the ability to have a hybrid solution or a private cloud solution with all of the convenience and flexibility that you get with a public cloud solution, the ability to uh, convene workloads, the ability to make adds, moves, and changes without ever having being physically in the data center. We see that as a huge driver of change in the industry.